So, hello, thank you for joining Growing Tech Fast, the condensed Org3D podcast where we talk about growing tech startups with those who've grown them. Today, I'm joined by Jon Monahan, who is the VP of Sales at Splinterlands. It's great to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you very much. So, for the benefit of our listeners, can you tell me a bit more about who you are and your mission with the work you are doing?
Yeah, so Jon Monahan, VP of Sales at Splinterlands. Splinterlands is a Web3 game, so it's a blockchain-based trading card game, kind of in the vein of those who might be familiar with something like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone or something like that. But we very much are a gaming and entertainment company first that happens to be on blockchain. And, the mission here is pretty simple. I think our co-founders really just started from a passion for gaming, and they wanted to make a really cool game, but they happen to also know a lot about blockchain technology. And so this idea of digital ownership and owning the assets that you're playing with inside the game, that was very fascinating to them. So they view the game as just a passion project for one, but two, also a very useful vehicle to help people in a very frictionless way move from Web 2 to Web 3, which we, and along with a lot of other people, believe is probably the future of the web as well. Yes.
100%. So tell me, how did Splinterlands come about and what was your background before Splinterlands?
Yeah, so my background was almost entirely in education technology before coming here, right? So it was a completely different industry. I started my career as an inside sales rep for a textbook publishing company. And along the way through my journey there, I started to figure out that I believed the technology side, when applied correctly, could really make an impact on education. And education in turn makes an impact on society, and is very important for the health and growth of everyone. So I sort of went down that path of learning the technology side at the publishing company that I started at, and that led me onto a pathway of working for education technology startup companies. So throughout the rest of my career up until earlier this year, I basically helped to build ed tech startup companies. And in one case, it was an online homework platform for physical sciences, mainly chemistry. In another case, it was like an adaptive learning platform that universities or individuals could build their own courseware on. And then more recently, I was working for a courseware company called Zybooks that helped to teach computer science, programming, engineering, and some of the other tech fields, and was very effective at it. So that was sort of my pathway here to Splinterlands. And in November, our CEO and co-founder, he goes by Egrid Lighthacker. Jesse Reich is the name I knew him by. We used to work together at Sapling Learning once upon a time. That was the online homework company for chemistry. So he actually has a background as a chemistry professor. He's a PhD chemist himself. And we worked together there on the sales front. So he was a sales engineer with expertise in the field, and he was very, very effective, awesome to work with. I managed a sales team. So we basically spent a lot of time on the road together, running around to different colleges and universities and doing presentations on what we felt would be the impact of the online homework system and so on and so forth.
Wow,
so we established a relationship then. And years later, it's funny how things come back around. And he reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing here called Splinterlands." And the more I learned about it, the more intrigued I became and thought it was an awesome idea. So here I am.
Yeah, that's been a very impressive career that so far. So I hear 22 is going to be a huge year for you guys. Tell me a bit more about your plans for this year.
Yeah, so I think in any tech company, the idea of having a track record of delivering on your roadmap is really, really important, right? I think so many tech companies, and especially in this Web3 and crypto space, they fall short of that, and I'm certainly seeing that out there in my short time in this industry so far. One thing that differentiates us is our ability to build out a really impressive roadmap that our community is really excited about, and then also to deliver on it. So this year is a hugely pivotal year. We've been around for 4 years. Splinterlands has. I've been here since February, but 4 years is an eternity in this space. You'd be hard pressed to find any other blockchain games that have been around for that long, and that implies that we've been through bear markets and bull markets, and we've been able to sort of survive through all of it. In part because we view ourselves as an entertainment company first. We are here to build community, provide entertainment value, and that is the product. It just so happens that as a user, as a gamer, you own the assets inside your game. So what does that mean for us for this year? Well, we've already delivered a major overhaul to the ranked reward system inside the game. So that's like, for your performance and your skill level inside the game, what are you actually earning from playing it? We've released SPS validator nodes. SPS is our governance token. That's a huge lift that got delivered in May, or we did the validator node license sale in May, I should say. The actual software itself is in testing now and is planned to start running this fall. We've done countless feature releases. We've added a whole second format to our game, which is a massive lift. And we're in the process of continuing to tweak and improve upon the ranked reward system. We're doing a massive new non-card market inside the game. So that's a big development as well. And that's going to support our land sale or our land functionality inside the game as well. So there's a lot happening there. Big release coming up with SPS governance as well. And then we're releasing a new mini set of cards, the cards that you play the game with, which are NFTs. So that's coming up as well. And then we're doing our first ever live community engagement event. We're calling it Splinterfest, and we're doing it at the HyperX Gaming Arena out in Las Vegas in October. So that's another massive lift. So you bundle all these different things together, and it basically accounts for a huge year for us. And maybe the biggest announcement of all has not yet even hit. I don't know when this podcast will be out in the wild. But by the time it is, certainly next week, we have a big public announcement planned as well. So big year. You're right about that.
Yeah, very big year. Like that. So are there any particular moments that have triggered a change in your thinking approach to the startup way of life?
I mean, I think that it's a series of moments throughout my career, right, that have really impacted how I think and view the world. So, early in my career, I started out at a large company, did about $2 billion a year in revenue, big corporate structure, lots of people. That's kind of how I thought the business world really was. I think the biggest thing that startup world has taught me is that the best idea should win, right? So we used to talk about one of my biggest mentors talks frequently about having a best idea wins culture, and frankly, that's sort of the lure for me to stay in the startup space, because I think the further you move away from being a startup company, the harder it is to maintain that sort of philosophy and that approach. But that single moment was probably the biggest impact, and it was a very early one for me. But then certainly along the way, learning lessons, just making sure that you do what you say you're going to do and having integrity, being genuine. Most of my career has been in sales specifically, and sales, I think a lot of people have this viewpoint or this perception that sales is all about convincing people to do things. And I see it very differently. Sales is very much about educating people on their options and allowing them to pick the best one for them, because no single product, no single service is right for everybody. And so I don't approach any conversation that way. I'm here to help you understand if what we're doing is right for you, if it's a fit. And if it is, then I'll help you get to that place where you can make an educated decision and you can move forward, and then support you through the process. So, that I think is a philosophy that was really born from being in startup world, right? Like, I think the best idea wins culture really led me to that line of thinking and that approach to selling. And, so that's probably the single biggest outcome for me.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. That really does resonate with me. So if you could, what would you have told your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be focusing on efficiency, right? They say youth is wasted on the young. I was no exception. I have a really long history of having to learn things the hard way, especially when I was younger. But maybe the biggest thing is efficiency and understanding the idea of opportunity cost, right? So for every choice that you make on how you spend a moment of time, that's a moment of time that you cannot spend doing any number of other things. And so really the name of the game is, how can you do things as efficiently as possible, and keep from spinning your wheels, because that will boost your productivity. It'll give you more free time for creating balance in your life and your career. It just allows you to spend your time in ways that you control, as opposed to being controlled by others. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that I didn't understand at 20 years old. And if I could go back and slap myself around a little bit, that would be the one thing that I would hope to impart. Yeah,
that is some fantastic advice. I know COVID was a bad thing. It was an awful thing for everyone around the world, but how did it affect you?
Yeah, for me, it was, there was some massive, as well as some negative effects. I think, on the negative side of things, I lost a little bit of balance. I had been working from home. I've been a nomadic employee for a long time. But I also traveled quite a bit. And while traveling for work is a colossal pain at times, it's definitely a double-edged sword. What I didn't realize until COVID hit and I was at the home office all day, every day, is that, it did create a sense of balance. When you're out on the road, it gives you an opportunity to miss your wife, miss your kids. It gives you an opportunity to get a lot of contact with people and interesting people, and be out there in the world and experiencing different things. So when COVID hit, it didn't take long for me to realize that balance was pretty important, and I had to start figuring out ways to care for my mental health a little bit, right? And so in the long run, I figured it out, and I succeeded in spite of that negative aspect, but it took a little bit of time to get there. Not to mention, the horror stories of certain people that I know, or people that my friends know that had incredible direct bouts with COVID, incredibly bad direct bouts with COVID, and that sort of thing. Certainly negative as well. But on the positive side, at the time, I was charged with building an organization within Zybooks called New Markets, which was fascinating and fun, and really has been a major achievement in my career thus far. But New Markets, in the context of Zybooks, was finding out how we can reformat our product and service offerings to fit fully online universities, which were growing quite a bit even before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. But certainly COVID, sending everybody back to their homes and really destroying the ability to get out on a college campus and that sort of thing, it really drove a boom in the fully online university world. And so, professionally, I really enjoyed, a really, really big influx of wins and stories, and ultimately it became a really successful part of my career. So on the positive side, COVID had a major impact on my professional life as well.
Yeah, 100%. I totally understand. And so what have been the lowest and the highest points in your startup career?
Lowest point was an early point. In fact, it was the very first startup company I worked for, and it was only a couple of weeks onto the job. I had a moment in time where, I inherited a team of inside sales reps, and I was tasked with managing them and being sort of a player coach role. So I was meant to both manage inside reps and also go out onto campus and be the live on campus person for them to organize presentations and that sort of thing. And one of the team members that I inherited, he was a great guy by all accounts, but he really took a swing at me, and I guess he didn't like how I was doing things right off the bat, right? And he sent an email to the founder of the company and the VP of business development that hired me, and copied me, recommending that they fire me. And so that was a bit of a splash of cold water, and a lot of lessons learned in managing people and figuring out how do you build a successful culture. And so I wouldn't trade that moment for anything in the world, but certainly was a low moment in time, because this was only the second company that I worked for in my true professional career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had just started, and it was my first foray into working at a startup company and so on and so forth. And here I have one of my reps recommending that I be fired. So definitely a low moment there for a brief moment. High point came, I think, really over the course of the last year, which was my fourth year at Zybooks and building that new markets business unit. And it was the year that I really started to pick up momentum with hiring just an amazing team, and having them fully trained and operational and productive, and sort of carrying through the positive momentum that COVID had actually afforded us, working in the fully online university space. And so at that moment we had, at that point, that fourth year at Zybooks, I can honestly say that I think we had successfully built a mature business unit that was fully functional, fully operational. So that was definitely the high point of my career thus far. And it also helped me to understand just how much work it takes to get there. And, so coming to Splinterlands is a new challenge, and definitely starting over on that front.
Yeah, understandable. And what changes have you noticed in yourself since joining Splinterlands?
I'm more anxious. It's the first time in my career that I've encountered that I've been so subject to volatility in markets, right? Like, yes. I think if your primary revenue stream comes from selling packs of NFTs, even if you are producing a high degree of entertainment value, and you view yourself as a gaming company and entertainment company first and foremost, I've never been so subject directly to market swings, right? And having joined late in February, I don't know, how much you pay attention to the crypto markets, but it certainly hasn't been the best of times. Now, like all things, it's temporary. It will come back around. It's proven itself over and over again in that way. But I've basically spent the entirety of my time here sliding down a hill. And yet, in spite of all that, we've still seen quite a bit of success. We've cleared a whole bunch of milestones. We continue to grow. We're just growing slower than maybe we were, at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. So we're still seeing quite a bit of success. But this newfound anxiety that I'm not quite so used to having is creating some creative tension for me as well, which is good. I think it's, at the end of the day, I like to fast forward and think, okay, when I look back 10 years from now at what all this meant, what I can honestly say is it's been a period of incredible growth. In my first, 1 month on the job here, I probably learned more than I did in the past 10 years of my career leading up to that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, it's going down at the moment, but crypto, it will come back, and it'll come back stronger. I'm hoping that as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think the the analogy that fits best is the forest fire, right? So I think when you get in just a unsubstantiated bull run in terms of value being created and provided, I think that's kind of what we had in the last bull run. You're bound to hit a point where, the speculation comes back to burn everybody, not everybody, but, burn a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think you need the forest fire to come through and clear out all the brush and all of the dead and decay, right? And it allows for new growth, So I think the organizations that are really focused on providing value and building, those are the ones that are going to come out the other side. And you can easily compare this to the internet bubble in the late 90s.
Yeah.
As well. Out of this group of existing companies, you're going to have, I'm pretty convinced, some Amazons and Apples and Microsofts and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it's a very necessary part of the life cycle of any sort of innovation, any space. And can't wait to see what the other side looks like when we exit the bear market.
100%. Like you say, no market can go straight up in a straight line. It has to go up and down, and that is the way it is. So who would you say your key role models have been?
Yeah, I have a lot of them, and I think that's the important. I also like to have the approach to life that there's something to learn from everybody, right? And I think that's really important. So, it depends on what lens we're looking through on what role model I might name. But, one that's really been important to me, actually a couple of them that really impacted my professional life and startup world, and that's flowed into my personal life as well, is Alex von Rosenberg and Bill Hendy. Bill was the VP of sales at Sapling Learning when I started out in startup world. He and I had actually both worked at the previous publishing company that I was at, except he was in a much, much higher role at that phase. But he really taught me a lot about how to deal with people and how to manage people and how to be true to yourself. I think he's and continues to be an incredible inspiration for me. I just saw him a couple of months ago. He lives down in Austin, Texas. So I try to never miss an opportunity to go see him. The other one is Alex von Rosenberg. He's the one that actually hired me at Sapling Learning as well, and taught me the importance of the best idea wins culture. Being pragmatic and just making sure that you're making the best decisions possible with the imperfect information that you have on hand. He's taught me a lot about just how to view business and game theory and those sorts of things. So those are probably the two biggest impacts on my professional life in terms of role models, for sure.
Yeah. And I know you've already given us a fair few gems of wisdom and advice, but is there any more advice you've been given in your career which has been so beneficial?
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
I like that.
I think, and it's not necessarily my nature to be unassuming, right? But I do actively focus on being as unassuming as I possibly can be. And I think that's really important, because what it does is it allows you, if you keep your ears open, the opportunities, you won't be able to help being able to hear the opportunities that come your way. But if you're too busy being a mouthpiece and pretending that you know everything, I think that's detrimental to growth. That's detrimental to your health. And so that's some of the best advice that I've been given. And I like to give that advice out as well. 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
No, I really do like that. I really do like that. And final question, what should our listeners be doing more of in 2022?
Ooh, learning.
Yes.
So, in the context of what I'm doing now in this world of Web3 and blockchain technology, it's not that blockchain technology is rocket science. The actual technology itself is almost the brilliance almost entirely comes from its simplicity. I think it's important for everyone to go and learn a little bit about it for themselves, because I am convinced that we're going to come to a period of time in the not too distant future where it's going to have a really broad impact for everybody. And so, the same, just like driving a car does not require you to understand the mechanics and the engineering behind how an internal combustion engine works. You don't need to know the technicalities of blockchain so much. But what you really need to be able to do is to understand, what is the value that it can ultimately provide, and how does that actually apply to everything that we're already doing in the world today. So I think, the best advice I can give, what should everybody be doing? They should be learning. I recommend learning about blockchain technology and Web3. And please go past the headlines. Dig in a little bit. The headlines, certainly can paint a negative picture at times, and it's not all negative. Is there negative out there? Yes, but it's not all negative. But whether it's blockchain technology or some other innovation or something else that can improve your professional life and your personal life, make sure to spend some time learning. I think that's always important.
Yeah, some great advice. Fantastic advice. And Jon, it has been a pleasure. And yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking and hearing your story and getting some of that wisdom. Thank you to everyone listening, and tune in next time for Growing Tech Fast.
Yes. Thank you, Colin. I appreciate you having me on.